I will never shut
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Yes, I'm back to the I will never shut up little intro. And it's funny because no, actually it was a different there's a different YouTuber. They're both pretty blonde girls, so I get them confused, but actually this show is inspired by Life Take Two. If you want to go check out her channel, she's a former super hardcore MAGA supporter, and like her experiences are really, really interesting. As usual, do need to, of course, show you the shirt. We do not have the Lucy cam because I did some rearranging in here and I don't have the second camera hooked up right now. It'll come back eventually, but got my Bonjour Bitches shirt on. Okay, so what are we talking about today? I've been, I will never shut upping for a while about creeping Christian nationalism. Now, to piggyback slightly on some of the themes that the channel Life Take Two talks about, I certainly don't have the experiences that she had, but a mild dose, okay? A mild dose. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background to show you why I can see this coming a mile away. And some of the things we're going to talk about here, you're probably going to say, oh, I'm reaching. That's not what it means. Okay, coded language is a thing. It's very much a thing. And in politics particularly, you have to look out for it. But some of my background in my youth. So try to encapsulate it. I'm not going to say I was born on a windy day in October 18th, you know, back in the Paleolithic period. So growing up, painfully close to my mother. My mother became a Christian a few years before she passed away. I was not a Christian. She kept trying to get me to go to her church. And then the classic, and I'm a Christian now, by the way. Just wanted to let you know this, we're going back now where we're going to pick up this story. I was 29. So when she was dying and I was visiting her in the hospital, I made one of those hasty deathbed promises to try to ease her worries that I promised her that weekend I would go to her church. Now, she passed away before that Sunday, but I kept the promise. I went to that Sunday, that church service, and I think it was like 2 weeks later that I converted. However, it was a pretty fundamentalist church. I didn't think so. It was very hip and modern, and the band was great, and I was into music, and the pastor was so relatable and funny, and it turns out later, you know, of course, he was involved in sexual sin and just all kinds of stuff. Look up Pastor Bob Coy, Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. They'll tell you, but very charismatic, okay? And they were not like the screaming preachers on YouTube fundamentalists, but they were fundamentalists. Like, you don't drink or chew or hang with those who do. And I had went through a period because I was not in a healthy marriage, and I don't want to talk smack about my ex, so I'm not going to get into that much. Let's just say I was not in a good place. I don't think he was either, just from a bad childhood. Anyway, so going through serious depression and anxiety because of marital issues, like really, really bad. Went to church counseling, and of course, everything in there is pray it away, okay? And I thank God, though, for this one counselor, after a while of going to her, and I've told this story before, who took me aside and said, listen, I can't say this in our sessions, honey. You need medication to handle this depression. Best, like, and that turned my life around. Haven't, you know, that was a bad period, you know, and I'm sure some wise asses are going to come and comment and go, oh, what in a figure, the pink hair, you just need the nose ring, no wonder you're loony. Yeah, I was going through an abusive marriage, and if you want to pick on somebody for being depressed over that, knock yourself out. That says a whole lot more about you than it does me. But it tells you the type of church I was in. And then when things were getting really bad, like divorce was not an option there. Okay. I ended up getting divorced after there was, I give a story. There's a story time on my channel if you want to see, where I do my story time, where, oh, got to turn off the furnace. One sec. I usually do that before the show. Yes, I am in the basement, where I talk about my experiences with domestic abuse. So you can go check that out if you want to. But where the more salient part comes in, I've often said, I was raised Democrat, became a very dedicated, not so much in voting, but in principles, Republican when I became a member of this church, because it was the type of church that had the Israeli flag along with the American flag and the Christian flag on stage. And when you accepted Jesus into your heart, you also accepted the Republican Party into your heart. That was just the way it was. And they were politically active. I used to do abortion clinic protests. I started to get, much more politically active. And that was at the time. So it was more towards the tail end, but it was in full swing. So I became a Christian. I believe it was, when did my mom pass away? God, I have a hard time remembering. Early 90s, I think. I can't believe I can't remember my conversion date now. But that's close enough, because I got married in 89. I became a Christian after I got married, but not, no, maybe it was mid 90s. I'm sorry. No, 96. I think it was 96. Okay. So the whole moral majority thing had already had its time, but the evangelical church was solidly within politics at that point. And I went to Fort Lauderdale. D. James Kennedy, I believe he's passed away now, but I think that was Fort Lauderdale First Presbyterian of Fort Lauderdale, something like that. I was an evangelism explosion, street evangelism trainer. And anyway, he was super, super political. And I believe it's his nephew. It's some relationship, some relation that does Samaritan's Purse, if you ever heard of them. Anyway, there was a huge conference in Fort Lauderdale. We could probably look up the year. I might do that while I'm going to see if I Google that really quick, if it comes up, so we can give some time frame. But it was touring the country. It was called the Reclaiming America for Christ convention, Fort Lauderdale. I'm going to see if that comes up. I'll remember that vividly. So very, very political, Christian nationalist, laying the seed bed for what? Oh, it's Coral Ridge Ministries, Coral Ridge Presbyterian Churches is all coming back. So it's now called the Kingdom Come Conference. So it's still a thing, but so it looks like this was in 2005-ish, maybe, that it was in Fort Lauderdale. I don't want to stay on that screen too long, but Coral Ridge Presbyterian, that brings it way back. I wish I could remember, one of you guys could look it up, the CEO or whatever they want to call it of Samaritan's Purse, but they actually do some good Christian ministry. The name is going to be on the tip of my tongue, though, until I can think of it. So that's the background I came from. After my divorce, which was around 2009, 2010, I don't remember that much. It might have been earlier, because I think I came to Colorado in 2011. Anyway, that's after the divorce, and with the church basically saying you got to tough it out and all of that. And also they're very hardcore anti-gay messaging, and I was all up in that, okay? But I had attention because my ex-husband's brother is gay, and he was a great person, and I knew so many gay people. And at the Calvary Chapel, I had a really good transgender friend, and I couldn't reconcile some things with reality. Some people could go, oh, well, you change your mind because of feels. I don't care. God gave you feels. And, you know, that got me questioning. So you could say in some way I deconstructed back then. That isn't a word that was used then. I'm still a Christian. People from my past would say I'm not, but, you know, of a much more liberal Christian perspective as it is, which I think is more correct, but I don't get into that with people. You can think what you want. So that's my background. Obviously not as hardcore as the lady that I got the inspiration for this video from. So this bring us forward. So I will not fall into the, I don't want to call it a trap, but it seems like the theosis of Charlie Kirk, where because he was horrifically murdered, which in fact he was, absolutely condemn that in no uncertain terms, seeing that video. I wish I had never seen it. But it doesn't make the things he said and the ideas he espoused, you can't talk about it or you can't criticize it. That is ridiculous, and I will not bow down to that. He's not a saint, and even if he was, I still think you can criticize saints. And I actually heard a quote from him today, because some people will go, well, Charlie Kirk wasn't a Christian nationalist. Yes, he was. He would like to dodge and say, well, I'm just a nationalist who's a Christian. Oh, okay. You're a Christian nationalist. Something he actually said today. So Christians and Catholics will well, Catholics are Christian, and you cannot think so. I don't care. Don't come for me. Christians will recognize this verse. The only reason I put Catholic separate is because they have a different interpretation of this verse. It's very important to Catholics. But Charlie Kirk actually said, for the verse that says, upon this rock I will build my church. Those of you who are Christians will recognize that. Now, the argument is the rock Peter, or is the rock Peter's confession? That's the big, Catholic, Protestant debate. But Charlie Kirk actually said, no, that's a wrong translation. It was, upon this rock I will build my government. Do not tell me Charlie Kirk was not a Christian nationalist. Now, I may have been a mild one. It certainly is a spectrum. So this moves on to his memorial service. This isn't his fault, and may he rest in peace. But some of you may have found it inspiring and wonderful and got y'all jazzed up. I found it quite an abomination. Now, I'm not saying he would have thought so. It wasn't a memorial. It was a political rally. And it wasn't just a political rally. It was a very dangerous political rally. And the rhetoric there was so heavily steeped in the road to Gilead. And I don't mean literal handmaids. I'm using that as an allegory. We are going to look at, and there's going to be a lot of clips, so you're going to have to bear with me. We're going to look at the speech of Stephen Miller, who is, oh my God, chief of staff. He's Team Trump. He's got a job in the administration. Sometimes I forget all their fancy titles because I don't respect them. And maybe we'll look at Trump's speech at some point, but Stephen Miller's was just chilling. And it wasn't just chilling because of what he said, it's also the look. There's a look, I know it, the look of the zealot. And again, I'm going to point out the coded language. You could say, oh, you're just reading into things. Okay, you can think that if you want. But I also wanted to, because I get this all the time, when I say, we're not creeping down the road to fascism. We are running down the road to fascism. And before, again, all you people in the comments, you know, you're just a loony Democrat. No, I'm a loony Libertarian. Get it right. I don't like the Democrats either. So I just want to give you a bit snippet, because I agree with this, what I mean when I say fascism. Obviously, here, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does echo. So to point out that nothing today exactly mirrors, you know, Nazi Germany or Mussolini's Italy, and those two didn't mirror each other, and they were both fascists. And I detest putting the word neo before something, but if you want to say what I'm describing is neo-fascism, fine. Fine, do that if you want. It's fascism for today. So, obviously not identical to fascist regimes of the past, but here are the patterns. This is the definition I'm using. And it needs to have all of these to a certain extent. Having one or two doesn't make something fascist. It's the totality of the circumstances. So, first point, militant or ultra-nationalism. Check. An extreme form of nationalism that prioritizes a pure national community and subordinates individual interests to the state. That is absolutely going on right now. Authoritarianism with a democratic veneer. Check. Leaders consolidate power by weakening democratic institutions and suppressing oppositions, often while operating within the political system. They present themselves as outsiders who alone can fix a failing system. Savior Trump. Appeal to the myth of a national rebirth. Make America great again. This is a core feature where leaders promise to restore the nation to a past glory after a period of perceived decline or humiliation. Next, scapegoating or out-group demonization. Check. Problems are blamed on internal and external enemies, such as ethnic minorities, immigrants, or political opponents. Where is that thing I like to... I broke this mic a long time ago. This is my old... Welcome to the Preterist podcast. Anyone who remembers me from then will remember that tone of voice. My old podcasting voice. This podcast was made on a Macintosh, as if I'd use anything else. Anyway, and I'm still using Macintosh, by the way. Mic drop. I should get that clip again, my old clip of me saying that. This rhetoric is often used to justify violence and exclusionary tactics or policies. I don't want you to go, but the left does it too. Yeah, there's a fascist element on the left too. Yes, no shit, Sherlock, but we're talking about who's in power now. Cult of personality. Check. A single charismatic leader is portrayed as a heroic figure who embodies the will of the people. This is maintained through propaganda, mass media, and rallies. Next, opposition to traditional, let's say, classic liberalism and socialism. Now, I'd be opposed to socialism. Again, it's the combination here. Contemporary fascistic movements reject liberal democracy and individual rights, as well as collective left-wing ideologies. Now, there would be some things in here that people would say, I reject socialism. I know people will go, yes, but libertarians are okay with voluntary socialism. I think that term is a misnomer, but I'm not an offender for a word. I don't care what somebody calls something. I care what they mean by what they say. And what most people call voluntary socialism is actually communitarianism, and that's perfectly acceptable within libertarianism. But tainting it with the word socialism, I think, is a bad idea. Voluntary communitarianism, absolutely. Socialism implies a different theory of property rights. And competing theories of property rights as fundamental truths is incompatible. Now, if I'm going to give a Christian example here that I often do, like I can believe that I have a right to everything I produce, but I have an outside moral feeling that everything should be shared amongst all. I could take it back, but I don't wish to. That's what's perfectly acceptable in a libertarian society. I can't remember the names of the couple in the book of Acts where there was a communitarian society where they all pooled all of their resources. Sapphira was one of them. Crap, I can't remember the biblical names. But this couple said they gave everything, but held something back and got scolded. If I'm correct, like one of them dropped dead. Like scolded might be, I just don't want to misstate the Bible, but those of you who know the story, know the story. But I call having the same theory of property, but voluntarily setting it aside, I kind of analogize that to Jesus came to earth and laid aside the privileges of divinity. He could have taken them up at any time, but he chose not to. So that's my whole thing on voluntary socialism. Next, mobilization and violence. Supporters are actively mobilized through government-organized rallies and social media. We are kind of there, but not really there. And I'm starting to have an entirely different view of January 6th. Call me a heretic. I don't care. And might have a guest on about that. Violence is used or glorified against opponents to enforce ideological conformity. We haven't done that, but we are laying, when I say we, I mean those in power in America are laying the foundation for that. And hello, sorry, there are people, I have my chat screen over here. I got so worked up on this. And last, an us versus them mindset. This political tactic creates a hostile division between the people and demonized outsiders or elites. I think we definitely see that. So now with that introduction, I want to crack open my Diet Mountain Dew, and we are going to go, I think I've got 12 clips. I tried not to play his entire speech, but there was very little I could cut out because everything was so pregnant with meaning. Okay, let's play the first one. Why am I not using my Stream Deck? Maybe it's not. Let's try it.
The day that Charlie died, the angels wept, but those tears have been turned into fire in our hearts. And that fire burns with a righteous fury that our enemies cannot comprehend or understand.
Okay, my mic's back on. I was making sure it was coming off of mute after this. Okay, it starts off with a bang. And at first you go, well, there's really nothing wrong with that. I don't know how many memorial services do you go to that are egging people on to a sense of fury. And it wasn't against, and this will crescendo, it wasn't against the murderer. It was all of a sudden against them our enemies. And again, this will build, but he's already setting up the us versus them and using a memorial service to whip people up into a fury, not at the senseless death, but again, at this onward Christian soldiers type thing.
The storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica is the storm. We are the storm. And our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion.
Okay, people who disagree with you have strength, passion, all of those things, but this is just to use a memorial service as an occasion for division, and then to hold up the widow as a rallying cry to make an enemy out of the them. Whether or not you agreed with Charlie Kirk, which I obviously didn't, his death was a national tragedy. Somebody should not be slaughtered for merely stating their ideas, no matter how much you disagree with them. This should be an opportunity to come together and honor the spirit of dialogue and trying to persuade people and expressing your ideas, not of Thor, the thunder god, and holding up the grieving window and Erica is the storm. Now, I'm going to say something a little controversial here, but why not? I'm going to say it. When has that ever stopped me? I've been watching these types of guys for a while now, and again, gave a bit of my background, and they're very just hardcore, fixed gender roles. But it's funny. Some of the biggest proponents, like from that side of the aisle, are women. And I call it the Serena Joy syndrome. Now, Erica Kirk seems like a wonderful lady, and she's obviously very smart, very beautiful, very accomplished. But she is everything that Charlie Kirk said women shouldn't pursue. When he was talking about women spending their 20s in college, he really, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, so I don't want to misquote him. But the strong insinuation was that is generally a waste of time for women, that they should be pursuing getting married and raising children during that period of time, and college is best to pursue an MRS degree. If you don't understand what that is, it's for misses. It's to go to college to catch a husband. Meanwhile, he married Erica after she was very educated. She was in her 30s, and now she's going on to be the CEO. So I saw this a lot when I was more in fundamentalism, is that the exceptional women are always treated as the not like other girls, and they'll be parts of movements that they accept themselves from. You got Candace Owens making a sandwich. Meanwhile, she's this worldwide celebrity. But, that's the exceptional woman. That's the not like other girls until they become Serena Joy. If Erica wants to model what Charlie Kirk preached, and I'm not saying she should, I'm just saying for consistency, I think she's a very admirable woman. But I don't have the worldview that would say that's not appropriate. She's the mother of young children who just saw their father get brutally slaughtered. Now, a little bit again on my background, so it gives my words some weight, but not much. The plural of anecdote isn't data. I ended up in an abusive marriage because I grew up in an abusive home. My parents are both deceased, so I don't feel much compunction now about speaking about them, which I wouldn't have done when my father was still alive. I wouldn't dishonor my father in that way. He was very abusive to my mother. I mean, very abusive. To the point that I pretty much thought my mother was going to get killed every day. Like the domestic violence was that bad. And you don't realize what children pick up. And I'm going to deal with your a couple of your comments, Michael. I do see them. I just want to let you know I see them. You'll remember some things you picked up as a kid, but as adults, I think we forget that children aren't stupid. I mean, they are, but they aren't. And I would see news stories or read news stories to the point that I kind of obsessively sought them out, where there was a murder-suicide of a couple that was in a domestically violent situation, or where the father killed the mother and all that. And I obsessed on that. So you have a mother of young children right now, girls, who saw their father brutally slaughtered and had to share that with the whole world. And there's just something just like primally intimate about that. And then their mother steps right into that role. You don't think these children are going to be traumatized, wondering if their mother is next? If you're going to espouse the trad wife philosophy, the MRS degree, that women need to be the power behind the power and all of that, you need to model that. And you've got 2 young girls. My heart goes out to those kids because they must be terrified. So I want to do some comment here. And I want to clarify what I said. So Michael, I'm sorry, let me move down him. There's nothing admirable about her. You just said she's a hypocrite. I do think there's hypocrisy, but I think it's cognitive dissonance. I don't think it's conscience. And what I mean by there's something admirable about her, she's shown great poise and grace, and she's an accomplished woman. That's what I meant. She's highly educated. She's very well put together, very graceful. That's what I meant. I don't know her to know anything about her personal qualities, but it is hypocritical. And people can be mad that I'm saying it. Being a widow also doesn't make you immune from critique. I think it's hypocritical to the message that's being put out there. And as a woman, I got this message from my 20s on up. And yeah, anyway. So there was a couple other comments. Let me move this down if I'm going to be putting up comments. We'll just keep him here. Dave Davis says, I personally think that Stephen Miller was one of the individuals behind the J6 riot. I tend to agree with you. He's a creepy dude. And he is one of the architects on our march towards Christian nationalist fascism. Okay. And Tommy Guns from Twitter says, yeah, I didn't like the vibe from that event, to be honest. I didn't watch the whole thing, just Erica and Trump at the end. I unfortunately have watched the whole thing, but it is this guy who really, yeah, it's definite ick. Okay, so let me remove that. Okay, we're going to go to the next clip.
Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry. Erica stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors, of women who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization, who pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light.
There is so much there. Oh my God, we might have to play that one again. But notice the focus on a lineage. And I almost want to say, we hunted the mammoth. Anyone who's familiar with like the old Gamergate and all of that will remember this was a liberal guy who had a website called We Hunted the Mammoth, because just some of those real like fedora tipping manosphere guys from that time, that was one of their sayings. Where would you women be? We hunted the mammoth for you. But notice, like, if he had said blood and soil in there, it would not have been out of place. We've got this lineage, and notice it's all very European, and and we built this and we built that. This hereditary line rather than a line of just humanity. And it's like strong women like Erica. Well, that isn't what Charlie had said in his life. Or if you even take people that are adjacent, they're not Christian nationalists, but adjacent in this whole movement. Take like Jordan Peterson, who said something. It's not that there was anything wrong with it. You got to weave all this together, where he extolled, no, it's the men that built all this. It's the men that built all this. Now he shifted it slightly here in order to lift up Erica, but in their typical message, it's the women are the one. Let's do the Doug Wilson quote when asked about women. Women are the sort of people that other people come from. See, they're there to produce the men. They're there to be the baby factories. That is what the civilization building is there. If you ever watched, this can be a weird diversion. I love Showtime and HBO series. The Tudors was excellent. But if you ever watched HBO's series Rome, I wish I had thought of this to get this clip, where the son of Octavian, when he was trying to root out degeneracy from Rome, and he was speaking to the women that are strong moral women who are the bedrock and backbone of our basically the family unit, but it was like the goddess of domesticity, and they are the moral backbone. And there's just, it's so much here of, if you don't get the vibe, it's almost hard to describe because I lived this. But I'm just saying, notice again, we trace our ancestors back to Greece and all of this. Well, guess who doesn't? I don't know, Black people? I mean, there's all kinds of people in America that don't trace their ancestry there. Now, I don't know, on here it says Stephen Miller is Jewish. I don't know if he is or if he isn't. What's strange about, so it would probably be more accurate, and it's a good thing to say, because I actually think Ben Shapiro is undeniably Jewish, also promotes this type of idea, would be to say Judeo-Christian nationalism. It's just the phrase Christian nationalism has just kind of encapsulated it, but you certainly got like the Ben Shapiros. So I don't think the fact that he's Jewish would necessarily preclude him, just like The hardcore Christian nationalists, who are Christian nationalists, they'll team together right now. See, people will, it was like the fanatics. Yeah, I'm gonna go all Godwin. The fanatics that, well, Mao did it too, that Hitler used to originally bring forth his movement. Once they really got hold, they were the first ones on the wall. They are the first ones on the wall. So right now, the hardcore Christian nationalists, like say Doug Wilson or any of these really hard, like complementarian rather than egalitarian type preachers that, women belong in the home, they shouldn't be in the workplace, they shouldn't be voting, those sorts of types. Right now, though, will team with like the Paula White types, Trump's spiritual advisor, because it's expeditious right now. But Paula would be one of the first ones on the wall. If we want to keep up the Handmaid's Tale illusions, as a gender traitor. Actually, I think those were the lesbians, weren't they? But anyway, they'll make unlikely bedfellows now. Okay, sorry. Next clip.
The light will defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us.
They. This is a divisive political rally. This is not a Christian memorial. And when you're mixing that and you don't see that as Christian nationalism, you're not going to see it until it smacks you in the face.
Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have?
This is Darvo. This is exactly Darvo techniques. And I always forget what each of those acronyms stands for. I know it's like deflect. Let's look up Darvo here, because me and my memory. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. That is exactly what he is doing. So he is talking about they fomenting hatred and inciting violence. In the meantime, he just got done talking about the army that got unleashed and on how they are on the side of good. And those they coming against us build nothing, have nothing. They don't have the proper lineage. This is gaslighting 101. My God.
You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness. You are jealousy. You are envy. You are hatred. You are nothing.
And people in the crowd were clapping at that. This was such a us versus them. You are wicked. And who's this? As far as we know right now, Charlie Kirk was shot by one mentally unstable, basically kid, barely an adult. And this is being used to justify all kinds of authoritarianism. And some of those Christians are clapping like mentally damaged seals. This is an absolute abomination for a memorial service. And you are nothing. Okay. if you were actually trying to like rally literal soldiers in a literal battle, like maybe that kind of rhetoric would be justified. But this is allegedly a Christian memorial. Do you want to know what God says about these people that you're calling all these names to? He says they're made in his image. No one made in his image is nothing. Certainly not these vast swaths of people that he is attempting to demonize. What did Jesus say when he was hanging from the cross? You don't know what fury you have unleashed. Actually, when he knew he was going to die, he said, don't you know that I could call down a legion of angels from heaven to defend me? But he did not. And on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity.
So, if you're opposed to him, you don't build, you don't create, you don't lift up humanity. Now, I have very strong political opinions. I think the state is absolutely unjustified and is by its nature a coercive evil. But I realize that the people who don't agree with me aren't evil. I mean, there are some that are, but in general, they just need to see it and be convinced. And it's not by doing this. And it is just stomach churning to see the people acting that way. How disgraceful to the name of Christ. And you're and again, it is such Darvo, because you'll just keep hearing it's the leftists that are trying to incite this or that. And the leftists ain't no sweet angels. I agree. I spent multiple years on this channel arguing about the speech police and the political correctness and all of that of the left. I'm a libertarian. I'm free to not like either side. But this is just accelerating into very, very ugly authoritarianism.
You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy.
And that may very well be true, that millions may carry on his legacy. But you don't weaponize the death of a man in that way to stir up. It seems like he's trying to stir up civil war, in my opinion. That's my opinion. While we got 4 more clips left, I think. If you like this content, please hit subscribe below. Again, it's very niche. I don't do quick. I give you full thoughts. Please subscribe to the channel, hit like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to support my work, you can go to patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I'll stick that in the screen at the end. It feels kind of gross to be doing a channel promo in the middle of this really, really heavy-hearted stuff. But, you know, takes that. That's the world we live in. It does help me be able to continue to expose this type of stuff and do this kind of content.
We will carry Charlie and Erica in our heart every single day and fight that much harder because of what you did to us.
You did to us. No, Charlie was murdered. You were not. Erica is a widow. You are not. Did it to us. It's a war on us by them. Us who have the pure lineage going back to Greece and hunted the mammoth.
You have no idea the dragon you have awakened. You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic.
On its surface, you could say all of that language is innocent. It is coded language. Be mad, stay mad. The West is coded language for primarily white people. That's just the way no, none of those. No immigrants. It's the American stock, remember, who traced their roots back to Greece. I think you all are getting the idea. Don't want to endlessly repeat myself.
Because our children are strong, and our grandchildren will be strong, and our children's children's children will be strong. And what will you leave behind? Nothing. Nothing.
Again, notice the blood and soil. The blood and soil. I expected a Roman salute at that point. You will leave behind nothing. I hate to tell you, but you know, those dirty leftists you hate, they're having kids too. It might not be your version of civilization, but when you want to go back to what we built, you know, our ancestors were not angels. Neither were the ancestors of people who don't trace back to Greece. Nobody's are. The history of humanity is quite messy and dirty and full of evils perpetrated against each other. We're not the pure angels that brought forth like all that is goodness and light. Nearly every civilization has contributed something. I am not acting like all cultures are equal. They are not. A culture that marries off young girls, you know, at 6, whatever, you know, the minute they bleed or whatever. No, we've progressed beyond that. We've progressed beyond, you know, the Genghis Khan and all of these are, but you can't say that none of those cultures contributed anything, but it's always just the West. You want to know there's some great stuff that came out of the East. I'm concerned about the human family. And just for some, I don't know if everyone was here from the beginning. Hello, Asabath. Just so you know, I don't mind anything that you're saying, but I am a Christian, just so you know. I'm just not that kind of Christian. Or somebody corrected me earlier and said he was Jewish. I'm using him more as an archetype. But quite obviously much more on the liberal branch of Christianity.
We built the world that we inhabit now, generation by generation, and we will defend this world. We will defend goodness. We will defend light. We will defend virtue. You cannot terrify us. You cannot frighten us. You cannot threaten us, because we are on the side of goodness. We are on the side of God.
And there it is. The minute that you in politics invoke God, that's the right's conversation stopper. You know how they would say, well, somebody on the left calling you a racist or a Nazi, it's just a thought-stopping, conversation-stopping. You want to know what's even worse? God said it. Don't blame me. We're on the side of goodness. We built this world. So everyone else who doesn't agree with you is on the side of wickedness and evil and hatred, and they will have nothing, and they didn't hunt the mammoth, and they can't go back and trace their ancestors to Greece, and you don't know what's coming. We are coming for you. And this is at a Christian memorial. This would be a disgusting political rally, even if it was just intended to be so. Oh, interesting. Natalie points out something that I'll have to look at. Became painfully aware of blood and soil references when there was a libertarian speaker that used that phrase and caught a lot of shade for it. And rightly so, in looking back upon it. I'm not saying that you can never use that turn of phrase, but if you do, you need to distinguish it. So let me pull this down. So Natalie says, from a Yahoo article, Miller plagiarized his speech from a 1932. I'm bad at pronunciation names. Goebbels. I can't say German names. Address titled "The Storm is Coming." Well, no wonder it sounded so much like, why aren't you wearing a brown shirt, Stephen? I'm reminded of that guy who followed the federal troops around. There's federal troops in DC. Did you see that? Who were patrolling the sea, and he followed them around with a boombox that was playing dun 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 dun. Dun. Oh, not all heroes wear capes. That doesn't surprise me. That is fascinating, Natalie. But no, it's the left that's got all the terrible rhetoric. And there certainly is some terrible rhetoric on the left. But my God, where we're going is frightening. I've got some older, let me get all of this off the screen. 1 second here. I've got some older bookmarks that I wanted to do shows on, just some crazy crap Trump was doing like 3-4 months ago. Now it seems tame, but I am going to eventually put this all together in a show. But I'm kind of on this Christian nationalism bandwagon now. Again, a lot of it's from my past, because I just see it so clearly that the seeds of it were laid, and I was part of that. Not heavily. I don't want to like oversell that I was like this, but I was certainly in it. But wow. Well, I do appreciate everyone coming. That is it for the clips. So we're on our closing. I always like to tell people what's coming up, and the way I get my show ideas, in case not that anyone really wants to know, but while I'm watching YouTube videos, I take screenshots. I go, oh, there was something in there I want to clip out. So I watched something today from the New Evangelicals, Christian Nationalism Explained. Actually, I'm going to be, as a libertarian, I can point out the hypocrisy in some leftist critiques of this far right. And actually here, while I really do enjoy the show, The New Evangelicals, there was some hypocrisy here in something they said. And then there's a Doug Wilson clip where I'm going to contrast something Doug Wilson said to something the New Evangelicals said, that show, and show that they're the same. They boil down to the same thing, and it's violence, but from the opposite ends of the spectrum. And then there's a clip, I don't know, JD Vance said something dumb, and I'm going to be talking about that. Okay, that is it for this evening. Let me go back up to my main scene. Oh God, I've got a trackball and I lose my mouse.
But I will never shut.
Sorry. This isn't a professional operation. I wanted to stick up here. There we go. So If you appreciate the takes, you can follow me on Twitter at Karen Ann Harlows. Pink hair, don't care. I say what I want. And there is my Patreon support. I do some exclusive content, book discussions mostly. Right now we are discussing from, I don't have the book right here with me, but I think it was from fraternal societies to the welfare state or something like that. But it was talking like pre-Social Security, pre the big welfare state, the way communities got together in fraternal societies like the Loyal Order of the Moose. It's an interesting book discussion. That is Patreon-only content. And you get advanced showings of my other channels. So the other channel I have is the Pink Parliamentarian, because I don't look the part, but I am a registered parliamentarian, which means I'm a Robert's Rules of Order nerd, and I do a show about Robert's Rules of Order, and also Jurassic Dictionary, where I talk about a dead, dying, unusual word, because I'm also a word nerd. Of course I am. So really appreciate it if you would consider becoming a patron at Patreon. Let me get this off the screen. But if not, if you enjoyed this episode, shoot me a super thanks. I really appreciate it. And again, it keeps this show going. And that will be it for this evening. I hope you all have a good night. Mi guapas de libertad.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.